Welcome back to Potatoes. Lieutenant Cabbage coming at you for another episode of Empyrion Galactic Survival. This will be the second episode in Season 2. This episode, our intent is to create our base. I have already crafted all the blocks. They are currently in the constructor. You can see it's a little dark outside, so I'm kind of chattering while the sun continues to come up. But in our constructor, we have all the blocks created. And as you can see, I have done quite a bit of harvesting as well. I've burned 2 or 3 of the fuel packs on each of the ores, so we should have enough to last us for a little while at least, even after creating all the items that I believe we will need for the quest line. As you can see, I even made some more drill charges because I will be doing more drilling as time proceeds forward, because we will need quite a few resources to create our ships, especially the cemetery, which I know you have seen at this point, because that is currently around 50,000 iron ingots required, so that will be quite a bit of harvesting before we leave planet on that particular ship. Okay, I did have a little snafu there, lost a little bit of video as I came down here, but as you can see, I have picked up all the blocks, but realized that I had not made any ammunition yet for the turret, so I am doing that before we head down to the shoreline, which will be where we build this base. So with that said, I will see you down at the shoreline once daylight has completed arising, and we will begin our base. Okay, and as these continue to craft, it has also occurred to me that since I last spoke at you, I have looted the entire base. There are a number of cargo containers that you can add to the P menu that you can see. However, many of the containers do not show up on that. Things like the medical containers, like these items back here, do not appear on any list. Kind of hope they will add that eventually, but they did on occasion contain some items, which as you can see they are now empty. However, I have moved everything over to, I believe it was the first cargo box. I threw the stuff in as I collected it. So I guess it wasn't the first cargo box. Which one did I put it in? Maybe it was the first of these. Okay, no. I'm going to have to try this video again because I don't know where I put the darn things. Pretty sure it was the first one, but obviously it wasn't. Oh, there we go. I guess it's the second one. But these are the resources that I collected, including quite a number of the boosts, which are usable in the armor, as well as a number of neodymium and erestrum. This is everything that we got, with the exception I used one of the neodymium ingots in order to make my tier 2 drill, which I have been using since that is fairly important. It's much easier to harvest with that because it automatically picks up the chunks of ore that are broken away from the rock. So that is was worth it to me to make that ahead of time. I will also add, before we leave the base, that I have filled out our plots within the large residential facility. So I have been harvesting those. As you can see, they are 60 experience per, so they have helped quite a bit just in harvesting these. To create additional seed bundles, you go to the food processor, and when you have some of the raw materials, such as the corn, you will notice that the corn sprout is now available to make using purified water and nutrient solution, which is all crafted within this factory as well. So that is how I actually created the additional seeds that we were not granted at the original launch. I'm also starting to stockpile the tomatoes, pumpkins, and durians, as those are used in the canned vegetables, which will be the primary food that I use as we start going out for longer periods of time, because they last for a period of 375 time increments, which I think are minutes, but I can't swear that I know that for a fact. but it's about that amount of time. So that's a couple hours before they will go bad while we are away from the base. Interestingly, along the beach, I found a critter that I don't believe I have seen before. They do appear to be non-aggressive. I was expecting to be attacked, being that they're insectoid, as the spiders do attack us, but these guys don't seem to be bothered by our presence. It's kind of a neat graphic. It's kind of a wonderful thing that Empyrion has been adding numerous items to the game lately, especially with Alpha 6. As you can see, we're currently at 605, so each time I create another episode, they've done another update or two. So they are continually working on it on their end, every bit as hard as I am working on my end in just playing it as well. Here's another little pro tip that I use. Some of the harvestables that are of higher importance, like the alien plasma ZR1, which comes from these mushrooms here on Aqua, are very hidden by the grasses and the general foliage that are on the plants. As you can see, a few steps away, we can't even tell that it is there. So what I have learned to do is I have placed one of the work lights. I use the uprights because they're a bit more visible from all directions. They're omnidirectional. So I place one of those when I find one of these mushrooms, because ZR1 is required to create the health packs, which we will certainly be needing later once we are attacking POIs. So I hope that point helps you. So with that said, it is clearly daylight here at the shoreline. So why don't we go ahead and do the next progress, which is place a base starter. So that is this block here. I'll go ahead and put that down. And let's see, I'm not sure how far up we actually want to put it, but I'm thinking we'll put it kind of at a higher position for the block. That way it will at least be in view of the base, so we can see what's going on down here from a distance. But I will also line it up so the blocks will allow us to create a bridge out to the island. Because when you place the base starter, that sets the rotation of the grid axis when you place it. So now blocks coming straight out at a right angle to this guy will go straight across to the base when we actually do create that section. But as you can see, the next part of this quest line is to place a generator, place a fuel tank, place a large constructor, and then activate the base. So I will go ahead and drop a few concrete blocks down just around this guy. Let's create a little bit of additional protection, and then we will put the other functional items up on top of the base. We should actually do this a little easier by using our drone. We can get an overhead look. If I can get it to snap in place here. I guess I got to move over a little bit to get the proper angle. But if we hold the control key down and then the left mouse button as I drag, you can see it will actually lay out an entire platform, which can substantially expedite the building process. And likewise, we will proceed forward to get our generator and the fuel tank and the large constructor, and we will put those down on the base, which should complete the blocks required for this part of the quest. Go ahead and put that there. I may move these at a later point in time, but for now I can just drop them down, will be sufficient. And the base, so there are those three checked. Okay, go back down into our character. Walk over to the fuel tank so we can put some fuel in it, because fuel, of course, is required to power the base. Go ahead and shift click to load it up and press the Y key, and that will activate our base and proceed us to the next step of the quest. It's to add a turret and ammo box and add an O2 and food production. Knowing that that was coming, we have our food processor, we have an O2 station, and we have an O2 tank. I should probably just drop that other... what did I just do? I just dropped a bunch of stuff, didn't I? But we do want to place the other of the fuel tanks down, actually, just to give us a little more capacity. I'll go ahead and do that. I'd forgotten I had made 2 of them. Okay. So now we'll go next to it, however, and place the O2 tank. And the O2 station, which will allow us to get oxygen on this planet. That is not as critical, but in other worlds that do not have a breathable atmosphere, that is more important. Okay, let's see. What was it? Oh yeah, the turret. So for the turret, we will go ahead and place some more blocks to raise it up a bit. Get back into our drone to get overhead. The turrets are a 3x3 block, so we will say create a 3x3 square here. Could have done this a little easier with using the line tool. Of course, with my coordination skills, that's not necessarily a good thing. Let's see, and I took my multi-tool off because that's what I dropped on the ground. Yes, I'm constantly making errors, as always. Disassemble, get out of the way, because you're in the way, come on. Still only have the Tier 1 multi-tool, which is why it takes numerous hits. Look forward to crafting the Tier 2 multi-tool, which does literally 10 times the amount of damage. The Tier 2 is 1,000 at a time, whereas the Tier 1 is only at 100. So we will need our turret, and we will need an ammo box. Looks like I didn't actually place the food processor, but I guess the O2 station was adequate for the quest update. We'll put it down anyway. Then go to our turret, which we'll place facing out over the water. Still haven't figured out where the drones are coming from, because they have not activated taking over the POI base, but I can tell you that the turret has been firing at some of the predator life forms, generally in this direction, so that is why I'm facing it in this orientation. Go and drop our ammo box down, inside of which, perhaps if I do this from the character instead, getting dark already, isn't it? It's getting dark already. Wonder if I goof something up. Nonetheless, we will change that. Am I in? See, I'm not even, yeah, I didn't alter the time yet. As you can see, I do not even have the debug menu open. I guess it was closer to the end of the day than I realized. So we'll go ahead and change it to daylight, however, so we can see what we're doing here. Okay, that's a little better. Now we can see again. I can see that there is a block that I did not remove. Okay. Meanwhile, I think I placed the ammo box around the other side. Yes, I did. We'll go in here and drop in some of the 30mm bullets, which is what the turrets actually use. And then we will proceed forward. Hit the P key. And go to our turret, our cannon turret in the list. And I will... Actually, I'll leave it on Predator. That will help to keep it safe. We don't care if it uses a few additional bullets. It's worth the peace of mind, in my opinion, to do that nearby our home base. And you can hear myself also my character breathing a sigh of relief, because the power core is also creates additional heat, as you can see. So I'm standing on it. It does increase the heat factor, which becomes too much if I'm here for too long. But when you back away, when it gets close, your character does literally breathe a sigh of relief, which is kind of neat. So with that said, the next step in the quest line, as you can see, is place growing plot and seed sprouts and add a growing light. So I have those with me as well. The seeds, oops, looks like I didn't bring any seeds with me to plant, did I? So I will have to go obtain some of those. Nonetheless, we can proceed forward and place the plots down at least. A couple of the concrete blocks in there so we can extend this out a little bit. 1, 2, let's go 3 by. And then place the 2 growing plots that we were granted with our starting gear nearby. Actually, that's one closer where I want to be, but that's okay. We can place the grow light here, and that will be enough to grow plots or to grow plants in these 2 plots, as the grow light does cover a 3 by 3 area. So this block here will actually be the center block, and then 1 on each of the 8 axes around it will create our 3 by 3 grid of 9 plots. So let me go back up to the base, and I will get some actual seeds to plant so we can complete this quest. So here we are back at the base, and I have chosen to plant tomatoes because I know those will in fact update the quest. Plus, tomatoes are nice to have in that they are used in the canned meat. So as we get meat, we will be able to create the other of the 2 long-lasting canned foods. Now, as you can see, standing next to the generator, with that said, I am getting, quote, too hot, so I will start taking damage shortly, but in the meantime, I will plant the tomatoes down, so that will get us the seed sprouts option done. And the next thing was simply going to be to harvest them, which we will have to wait a few minutes. I want to say they update in 10 or 15 minutes real time. I'm not sure exactly. I have not timed them, but perhaps now is a good opportunity to do that. So I will be back in a moment when they have completed growing. And while those are growing, just notice that I have actually attained level 10 as I was running around picking up some plants or harvesting. I don't even know when that occurred. But that does allow us to create a few of the additional items which are quite useful in the base. Specifically, the medic station I am going to unlock right away. So we will create that as soon as we get up there. As you can see, I took a bit of damage while I was standing next to the heater, or next to the power generator, because I was too hot. That is a much larger concern with Alpha 6 than it was previously in Alpha 5, because the environmental system is fully in place. So you can go ahead and unlock the grow light. We will unlock the tier 1 generator, as well as elevator blocks. I will likely need some of those in the base. I will do the tier 2 fridge, which is larger, as well as the rocket turret. I'm not sure if I will actually make one of those soon or not, but I'll do the minigun turret as well. I'm not going to worry about the hangar doors and ramps quite yet, but that will get us some additional base items to craft, as well as the larger tanks, though I'm not going to unlock them quite yet, because the other changes that they have done with the fuel, as you may already be aware, when you access any of the fuel tanks, and the same goes with oxygen, it is actually an overall fuel gauge of every tank you have. As you can see, there are 2 tanks. It's says here number of tanks 2, the total capacity, as well as what is contained within. The benefit to that is that if one of the tanks blows up, you do not lose the fuel that was in it unless it decreases the capacity below the amount of fuel that you currently have in the tanks. The other benefit is that I have found that the smaller tanks actually are better to use than the larger tanks. Square per square, they hold the identical amount. As you can see, these guys hold, I think it's 1,000, is it? Capacity, I guess it's 1,200 for a small tank, whereas the Tier 2 tanks, which are 2 blocks high, they hold 2,400, just as 2 of these do. And likewise, the Tier 3 tanks, which are 4 squares, hold 4,800, which is basically the same as 4 tanks. So in that case, what occurs, these guys, 4 of the single unit tanks have more hit points than a single of the larger tanks for the same area, yet it holds the same capacity. I will grant it takes a few more resources to make additional smaller tanks, but the benefit, especially in your vessels like the capital vessels I've been working on, as you've seen, the benefit to that is that you have more health and it will take the enemy more shots to take out the fuel tanks before they move on to the next target. So that can actually effectively buy you more time during the battle periods. Here we are about 20 minutes later, and as you can see, the plants have proceeded to the first of the 2 growth stages. The next will be harvest. But while we are continuing to wait for that, I wanted to note that I just told you a mistake. They have apparently adjusted the amounts they store. It's 1,200 for the Tier 1 fuel tank for a capacity, and it does have 25 hit points. Now the Tier 2, as you can see, does have less than twice the hit points at 40, so it is still a bit more susceptible to damage. However, they have increased the capacity to 2,700, so it is more than twice the storage the Tier 1 tank has. And proceeding forward, we can take a look at the Tier 3 tank. As you can see, the capacity for that is 6,000. So that will cause me to rethink how I have my fuel tanks on the cemetery. You've likely already seen my comments there, as I will be making them in my future as I made this discovery. It does have 80 hit points, so that is literally twice the Tier 2, but as you can see again, it has more than twice the capacity. So I guess they have adjusted the fuel amounts and hence the balance, as they did note they would likely be doing, playing with the balancing of each of the items. So the Tier 2 and Tier 3 are now a functional benefit to the fuel capacity on your ship, or your base for that matter, I should say. But with that said, I will continue to watch the plants grow and be back when that occurs. And as you can see here, now they are done. It has been 30 minutes of real time for them to grow. I will also note, however, that it does vary from plant to plant. In a case like this, I can tell you that the pumpkins, for example, take 5 or 10 minutes longer to complete their growth cycle than tomatoes do. But I have not actually timed them. I cannot tell you precisely how much time, but do know that they vary a bit from plant to plant. And as you can see, I have now crafted and placed the medic station. But another noteworthy change, or mentionable change they have made with Alpha 6, is that the medic stations are no longer automatic. In Alpha 5, and previous to that, if you ran and stood on them, you would automatically be getting the healing occur. As you can see, it is not. Now it functions very much like the oxygen station in that you click it with the F, or hit the F key, I should say. It's not actually a click. And then, as you can see, I get the first icon down on the left there, and we gain a couple hundred health, whatever it is. Let's see. Looks like about 200 with each use. So that way you're no longer getting it automatically, but you just have to click or press the F key, your function key, whatever you have that set at. In my case, it's still F, which I believe was the default. But that is kind of an important change to be aware of, because you do have to physically activate it in order for it to perform as required. So here we are back at our base, about sunrise. We have 11 hours until sunset, as it were. So we started the game, or started the episode, I should say, at the beginning of the day and ending at the next day. But I think next episode, likely, we will go through and personalize this base a bit more. Some of the buildings, like the 3 over here on our left, are in fact residential complexes, which are not much use to us other than the toilet and shower, things like that, to reduce normalities, but we can certainly build those in a much smaller location in the future. We'll also look at prepping and adding some fuel storage and things of that nature to these buildings, as well as just extending the deck so they're a little easier. I'll make it diagonally across so we can run a little easier. Just kind of personalize this base for our small vessel use. I don't know, we'll see what we can do to make it work right for us, for our particular situation. I don't know if that's going to be the right thing to do or not. What I do know, however, is that I'm okay. It's the world that's all wrong. It's just a matter of perspective. I thank you very much for watching and hope you enjoyed the episode. Until next time, take care.